The Parr family had finally settled into a comfortable rhythm, balancing their superhero duties with everyday life. Violet was starting college, Dash was trying to focus on sports instead of racing through everything, and Jack continued to surprise everyone with his unpredictable powers. Bob and Helen thought they could finally breathe a little, but the world seemed to have other plans. A new wave of emerging heroes and villains began to change the landscape, and the Incredibles found themselves at a crossroads of responsibility and legacy. Violet struggled with her identity, torn between being a normal young woman and a role model for aspiring heroes. At school, she tried to blend in, but her powers often called her away when trouble struck. She questioned whether she had a right to live her own life when the world demanded she carry the family mantle. Her friends admired her strength, but they couldn't understand the pressure. Violet began to confide only in her family, but even they didn't always know how to help. Dash, now a teenager, was full of restless energy and a desire to prove himself. He was fast, confident, and clever, but his impulsive nature often landed him in trouble. He wanted recognition as more than just the kid sidekick. When a local villainous gang of powered teens began stirring chaos, Dash saw them as rivals he could take down on his own. But his attempts only exposed his inexperience and nearly cost him dearly. Bob's protective instincts clashed with Dash's thirst for independence. Meanwhile, Jack became the biggest mystery of all. His powers were evolving in unpredictable ways, from creating portals to manipulating energy. The family could no longer ignore that his abilities surpassed even the strongest supers. Edna Mode, once again fascinated, took him under her wing to monitor his development. She warned Helen and Bob that Jack's powers could one day either save the world or destroy it. Jack, still playful and innocent, didn't understand the weight of her words. Helen had been working with the government to rebuild trust between humans and supers. She became a figure of diplomacy, traveling around the world to negotiate policies that would allow heroes to act without fear of law. But she constantly missed being home, feeling torn between motherhood and leadership. Bob reminded her that her work was making a difference, though he secretly worried that she was being stretched too thin. The strain on their marriage began to show in subtle ways. A new antagonist emerged, a brilliant scientist named Dr. Nexus, who believed that the rise of supers threatened humanity's survival. He claimed that powers created imbalance and that the future depended on controlling or eliminating super abilities altogether. Unlike past villains, he didn't seek domination but rather preservation of the normal. His ideology attracted followers, both ordinary people and disillusioned powered individuals. The movement grew, and the Parr family soon realized the danger wasn't just physical but philosophical. Dr. Nexus targeted Jack, believing that a child with limitless potential represented the greatest risk of all. He created devices capable of dampening or even rewriting super abilities. Supers around the globe began losing their powers mysteriously, leaving them vulnerable. Panic spread as heroes who once protected cities could no longer defend themselves. The Incredibles knew they had to act quickly, but Nexus was always one step ahead, making him one of their most cunning adversaries yet. Violet was caught in the middle when Nexus's movement spread to her college. Her classmates debated whether supers had gone too far, and for the first time, she heard friends express fear of her kind. She wanted to argue back, but her fear of exposure silenced her. When a close friend discovered her identity, Violet braced for rejection, but instead, they begged her to stay hidden, fearing what Nexus's followers might do. Violet realized her fight wasn't just physical, it was about hearts and minds. Dash, frustrated by his lack of recognition, confronted Nexus's powered recruits on his own. In doing so, he discovered how persuasive Nexus's rhetoric was, even for young supers. They weren't mindless villains. They were kids who felt abandoned, misunderstood, or exploited by society. Dash's worldview began to shift, and he understood that the fight wasn't as black and white as he thought. But before he could tell anyone, he was captured, becoming bait to draw the rest of the Incredibles out. Helen, heartbroken, wanted to lead the rescue mission immediately, but Bob urged patience. This was exactly what Nexus wanted, for them to rush in unprepared. The couple argued over leadership, old wounds resurfacing about who should take charge. Ultimately, it was Violet who calmed them, reminding her parents that they worked best together. With Frozone's help, they tracked Dash's location to a hidden base where Nexus was building a machine capable of permanently neutralizing powers. Jack, guided by Edna's cryptic advice, began to sense things no one else could. He saw glimpses of Nexus's plans before they unfolded, his powers reaching a level of intuition that bordered on prophecy. Edna reminded the family that Jack wasn't just another hero. He was the wild card in the entire battle. Still, Bob and Helen struggled to accept that their baby might hold the key to saving or dooming them all. Protecting him was instinct, but unleashing him might be necessity. The family infiltrated Nexus's base, moving together like a well-oiled machine despite their worries. Violet shielded her parents from a wave of drones, while Frozone froze machinery to stall its progress. Bob used brute strength to clear the path, and Helen stretched herself across traps that would have ensnared anyone else. But at the center of it all, Jack stood before Nexus's machine, which pulsed with energy that resonated with his own abilities. The confrontation reached its boiling point. Dr. Nexus tried to reason with Jack, speaking to him not as a villain but as a visionary. He told the boy that one day his powers would spiral out of control, hurting the people he loved. Nexus offered Jack a choice: surrender his powers and live a normal life, or continue and risk devastation. To everyone's shock, Jack paused, considering the words. For a moment, even Helen feared he might agree. But Jack's innocent giggle told them otherwise. With raw energy, Jack turned the machine's dampening field back on itself, overloading Nexus's technology. The resulting surge restored powers to the heroes who had lost them, reigniting hope across the world. But the blast also nearly tore the facility apart. The family scrambled to escape as Nexus was caught in the collapsing structure. Violet extended her shield to protect them, straining harder than she ever had before, proving her growth into a true leader. After the dust settled, the world was shaken but not destroyed. Nexus's movement fractured, with some followers realizing his ideology was flawed. Others disappeared underground, leaving the possibility of future threats. Governments began to see the importance of cooperation with supers, thanks to Helen's diplomatic work. But trust was fragile, and the family knew the battle for acceptance wasn't over. Still, people began to look at heroes not as dangers, but as partners. Jack remained the greatest enigma. His powers were stronger than ever, but he also showed wisdom beyond his years. Edna continued to mentor him, joking that he was her greatest creation yet. But beneath her humor, she carried a quiet concern about the boy's future. Jack's giggles often masked an intensity that no one fully understood. The family wondered if one day, the world would need saving from him or by him. As months passed, the Parrs lived with a renewed sense of purpose. They knew challenges would keep coming, but they also understood they weren't alone. With Frozone, new heroes, and even some reformed villains by their side, the world seemed less divided than before. The family dinners were still loud, chaotic, and messy, but filled with laughter. Through all the battles and arguments, love held them together. The story of the Incredibles was far from over. They weren't just a family of heroes. They were a symbol of resilience, balance, and hope. And as Jack's eyes glowed faintly under the setting sun, the family realized that their greatest adventure was still ahead. Whatever came next, they would face it together, because that was what made them truly incredible.